Hey guys, Perry here, and welcome to my guide to the Final Fantasy XIV achievement line for the Hoard. Finishing this achievement line will earn players the titles Hoarder and the Accursed, which are currently ranked as the number 4 and number 1 rarest titles in the game, respectively, as of the making of this video. These achievements require farming enormous quantities of the Accursed Hoard, a special type of loot unique to deep dungeons in Final Fantasy XIV. This guide is intended to show the best farming method for players familiar with Deep Dungeon and their setup. If you're new or unfamiliar with Deep Dungeons, I recommend checking out one of the communities linked in the video description to help you get started. And with that said, let's get into it. We start with Heaven on High. We want to use this Deep Dungeon specifically because it includes Pomanders of Concealment and Magicite, tools that will let us move around floors more easily. I recommend using Dancer as your class of choice for this if possible, as they have access to both Peloton and dashes, but any class with a dash like Dragoon or Ninja work fine too. Any class that doesn't have a dash will also work, just will be marginally slower, which we all know is a crime in the achievement hunting world. Once you've chosen your class, the first step is to create your file. Note that when you're choosing your file, it's a good idea to use the top file if you're a controller player. You're going to be going through this menu a lot, so we can do this to reduce the amount of menu navigating that you have to do. Then, we load into floors 1 to 10 so we can complete the first floor set. The goal for setup is to complete this floor set with at least one of the following: 1 Pomander of Intuition, and 1 Pomander of Concealment, or 1 Magicite. The details of how you complete this floor set aren't important, but we want to be able to load into floor 11 with an Intuition and something that lets us move around without taking aggro. While working through this setup, here's a couple of helpful things to remember. First, that Magicite only come from silver chests. Make sure you check all the ones you see. And second, Concealment Pomanders can only appear in gold chests on floor 7 and above. So, once you've collected an Intuition Pomander, it's not necessary to check every gold chest until you hit floor 7. While you're running, make sure to make good use of the extra treasure Pomanders, Fortune and Affluence, to increase your chances at getting the items you need. And finally, this is Dancer specific, but make sure you clear enough enemies to get to level 68 before the end, so that you can have 2 charges of Anavon for the farm. Other classes may have similar requirements, so keep an eye out. Once you have the required items and clear the floor 10 boss, you're ready to begin farming. This is the end of the one-time setup. To get started, load into the floor and use the Intuition Pomander. Look for the indicator on the minimap to see if there's an Accursed Hoard on this floor. If no, simply leave the instance and reload the file. You'll notice your KO count goes up with each time you leave, but this doesn't matter. It will eventually hit 99 and stop counting. Since you didn't clear the floor set, your Pomanders are reset, and when you load in again, you'll notice that your Pomander of Intuition has returned to your inventory. So, we rinse and repeat until we get a floor 11 that has an Accursed Hoard on it. When you see the indicator for a Hoard appear on your map, use either your Magicite or your Concealment Pomander and go looking for it. If you're using a Concealment Pomander, remember that any actions you take besides sprint will remove your concealment buff, and you may find yourself needing to fight your way to the Hoard if you reappear by accident. It's better not to use any actions and walk through all the enemies, since the Pomander prevents you from triggering any traps while it's active. This also means that you will want to make sure to use any dashes you have before activating the Pomander. If you're using a Magicite, just be wary of traps. There isn't too much you can do to prevent hitting them 100% of the time unless you picked up a safety and want to use it every time, but just be ready for any luring traps you may hit. In terms of speed, personally I prefer the Magicite method over the Concealment, as there's less to go wrong and it feels like it's a little faster in most instances. But in the long term, the difference is probably not significant. Your mileage may vary. In either case, once you've made your way to the Hoard, trigger it by standing on it and then immediately leave the instance. The only requirement for progressing the achievement is making the chest appear, so you don't need to bother opening the chest before leaving. At this point, your achievement should have progressed by 1 unit, and you can now reload the file and repeat the process. After collecting some data over the course of my progress to this achievement, I've noticed that the Hoards will appear on floor 11 just under 50% of the time, so you can expect to need to load in around 40,000 times to complete the final achievement. At my fastest pace, I was collecting around 80 Hoards per hour. So even with this farming method, this is going to take a large number of hours to complete. As usual, remember to take breaks. This is definitely one of the more mind-numbing achievement farms out there, and with the huge time requirement still existing even with this farming method, it's not hard to see why this achievement isn't very common. So, as a quick recap. First, we set up a file on floor 11 that has an intuition pomander and either a concealment or a magicite. This setup is one time. Then we load into floor 11 and we use the intuition. Check the minimap for the Accursed Hoard indicator. If there is no Hoard, then leave the instance and repeat step 2. If there is a Hoard, use the magicite or concealment and go make the chest appear, then leave and repeat from step 2. Each Hoard that appears will progress the achievement by 1, eventually leading to the titles. That pretty much covers it. Please feel free to let me know in the comments if you have any additional questions or if there are any other achievements you'd like me to cover. Best of luck to everyone on their Hoard farming. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.